You're watching Power Nation. This truck may look familiar, and that's because last season Music City Trucks brought it in and turned it into Project Trailgater.
But now that we got our hands on it, we're gonna turn this thing into something totally amazing.
We are bringing it back to SEMA this year, but we've only got a month to turn this thing into the ultimate river run and kayak hauler.
Welcome to Dirt and Trails. Could you please just give me a full rundown?
Yeah, so this is a 2025 Nissan Frontier. We got it in last year in conjunction with Nissan. We built it into what we called Project Trailgater. So the idea was it was an off-road capable truck with all the amenities you would need to have a nice tailgate party. Nismo lift kit, Nismo wheels with the bead locks. We had gutted the back seat, installed a fridge, a standalone power system, multiple different chargers for the extra batteries. On that bed rack back there, we actually had a TV on either side with a sound bar strapped to the back. In the back, we actually have a full decked system with their drawer and 2 of their half-width cargo glides on top of it. So that, I mean, for this, the way we're going with it this time, that's still gonna be super helpful for gear and access to it. That's what this thing was, but it's back now with a whole new design concept, and Chris is gonna run you guys through every detail.
Coming down the line, you're gonna see some yellow and blue lines. Yellow is lay temporarily or possible bar locations, and blue is where I think we're gonna start cutting out the fenders and cutting out sections of the door. We're gonna do some custom flares all the way around. So that is my plan for this. We're gonna have open air concept inside the cab. We're gonna have some extra body protection outside with the fenders and bumpers.
We are completely reworking the suspension with a combination of stock and aftermarket Nissan Titan components, Titan front and rear axles, and a set of freshly designed Nismo wheels with 37-inch tall tires with an even more aggressive tread to tackle any trail. To finish it off, we're mounting 4 kayaks on the rooftop to take the adventure off the trail and into the water when we reach our destination. This is Project Rapid Run. Now, after that, that's gonna allow us to check out a few other things that we might have to modify.
One of those things being flares. I'm gonna need to know the exact new width of this vehicle once that Titan swap is done in order to make fender flares that actually fit the build and are functional for it. And we need to fit 4 kayaks on top of this thing.
Yeah, so obviously we got a ton of work to do, so let's get to it.
Let's dance.
Our first step here is gonna be getting our door panels removed and getting everything inside of the door taken out. Now, when you start working with, plastic paneling, interior parts and stuff like that, it's gonna be a whole different set of tools you're gonna wanna use compared to what you would normally use on the outside of the vehicle. We went ahead and got some Duralast tools. They're gonna make sure we get this stuff taken apart and we're not gonna tear anything up while we're doing it. Yeah, if you can get your fingers in there, just get a little pop, that'll usually do it. And now we're making some progress.
I'm not saying I'm beat you again, but I beat you again. I already got mine off.
Just like that. 2 electrical connectors here. They're everywhere. Look, the proper tools. Oh my God!
I didn't even, I was just trying to get in the hole.
We're gonna have a lot of electronics we gotta keep track of here. So now that we've actually got the door panels off, we need to move on and get all of our electronics, the window motors, door lock actuators, speakers, and the windows themselves. Got to get all of that out of here so Chris can get started. I did forget to do one thing before we started doing all this and disconnected the battery, and that is move this window up into a position where I can get to the bolts that retain the glass onto the actuator. Now, it's not that big of a deal in this case because thankfully I've got plenty of room to get in here with a wrench and loosen them up, but for future reference, if you're working on something with power windows, before you pull that battery, make sure that you can actually get to all the bolts to remove your glass. Just like that. window.
Now that Eric and I have these doors done, we are ready to start planning out how and where we're gonna cut these doors. I already have a few lines laid out. Blue tape is tentatively where we're gonna make the cut, and then the yellow is where we're gonna put back in with some tubing. The doors are completely empty, so I have a blank canvas, and I am stoked to do this. So let's get rocking and rolling and get the body saw. So I'm thinking like, because if we just take out this section here, that'll leave us enough room and it'll give you that open air feel and still leave a significant amount of rigidity in the door.
Because I mean, really, if we're not making any cuts up here towards the top or anything, all of that rigidity is gonna stay in it. And then all the way down the side too, anywhere that it's not cut.
Like what, like that, like down to the next body line down? Or do you wanna go?
I think at the very least, yeah. Because I mean, really, the most we, what we really need to cover up is gonna be the door jamb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that does limit us a little bit. The mirror section here would have to stay on because the cab comes up behind it. But, looking at that, if we just take and follow that inside line, that would give us a lot more room out there. I think though, definitely gotta take some more out of that door.
Not throw in, but like put in like a little filler bar or filler something. Well, the doors, not only together, but to the cab, go as far back, essentially push these blue lines as far out in every direction as possible. So instead of going to here, we go down to like here.
Right.
All right? Seal it all off. That now becomes part of the vehicle. And then after that, we take the tubes and we just, however that works out, we just have a very simple, basic tube structure, and the tube structure is what moves.
Adding our own doors.
Pretty much. So to strip this down, I'm using these red surfacing pads we got from Forney, and they work great. They're not taking off any material. They're only taking off the paint and the clear coat, and I am making great time with these things. They're actually well worth the investment. So I have my TIG rod, and this is 1/8 TIG rod, all right? This is huge. Rarely will you actually TIG weld with this in an automotive application. At least I haven't. But what I'm gonna be using it for is actually a filler rod. I'm gonna have to form it a little bit, but it's gonna sit there and help fill the gap or bridge the gap between the cab and the door itself. I am now ready to start cutting out the doors. Also, I got a little practice. This is the lack of the door. Also,
we got another Nissan now, and there's a pretty good reason to be having this one in here, but I should probably get down before I tell you guys about it, huh?
Jump, I will catch you.
This is a 2017 Nissan Titan Pro 4X. Pretty much every generation of Titan and Frontier, there is interchange between the front suspension parts. Now, when you do that, that gives you roughly 3 to 4 inches of lift on your Frontier, as well as 3 inches of track width per side, which that gives you a really good stance for off-roading, especially if you decide to try and get wild with it like we plan on doing. A majority of the parts we're gonna be using are gonna be coming from our front end here. Also from here, we're gonna be using the spindles, the lower control arms, and maybe the shocks and springs, depending on how everything sits. We just wanna get the control arms and everything in first, check the geometry, and go from there on how we need to proceed with our shocks and springs. From the rear, we're gonna be taking this axle, and the only reason for that is because of that increased track width in the front. We don't wanna have to try and make up that difference with wheel spacers, because that's just not safe. I think it's time to get this thing up and start tearing it apart. Get it like 3-4 inches off the ground and we'll make sure she's good. This thing is perfect for what we need. It's got all the parts that we're looking to get, and none of them are broken. So I'm gonna gather some tools and start getting this tore apart. Chris has some more work to do on them doors.
All right, I've made miles getting to where we are right now. Let me walk you through where we're at. So the front here, I had a lot of concerns pulling it apart, mainly because this was the first door that I worked on, but more than anything, I want to make sure it stayed rigid. Going back and forth with the team here, we decided that The more door that we could remove, the better, which turned out to be great because I didn't have a 4-sided box. Now I just have 3. The bottom is open straight to the rocker, and I'm going to weld all of that shut. I have 1/4-inch round bar around the top and the backside, closing in the gap, and then 1/8 filler rod that I pulled from the warehouse. What that's gonna do is it is gonna give the body filler and fiberglass that we are gonna be using something to adhere to and then not just fall into an open void. We want this to look like a one smooth section like it came from the factory, and we are well on our way to making that happen. Once I was done that, I moved on to the rear door. First thing I did was I used this section here as a template. So now it's consistency, it's gonna be the same lines on both sides, and it's gonna make everything just progress at a little bit faster pace, because right now I wanna start making time. Next steps, I'm going to trim the inside here, I'm gonna trim the outside, and get rid of this intrusion bar, because that is the only thing left in our way.
Now that we've got this old axle out from our Titan, we need to get this old axle out from our Frontier. Stop. Thank you. Just loosen them up a little bit to start out with. We want to make sure this axle has at least a little bit of a cradle to rest on. That way we know, what way it's going to try and move itself before taking all the support away. So that is all of our U-bolts loose. And it does look like this thing is actually sitting pretty sturdy. Perfect. It's time to move on and start taking care of the front. I've moved on to the front, get all of this torn out, get our rotor removed, move on and get our tie rod end, 22. Get our sway bar link out. I'm gonna have to get this lower ball joint bolt out of the way. And everything is fully disconnected. Take our steering knuckle out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and get our strut here disconnected. All we're gonna do is just take a little bit of tension off here. There we go. I'm gonna get the CV axle out, move on, get that diff out, and that'll give me even more room to get these tie rods out of the way. So I've been making some progress up here in the front, and we have a majority of our new suspension components installed. All we have left to do here is do a little bit of maintenance on some of the other hard parts we pulled out of our Titan. We're gonna get started, then replace this ball joint. Anytime you're installing used parts from a junkyard or a donor vehicle or anything like that, it's always a good idea to replace anything that's considered a wear item or is maintenance, such as ball joints, bearings, bushings, stuff like that. We actually have an example of all 3 of those right here in front of me. Now, the best way to take care of that is to go ahead and get a hold of some Duralast parts and get some brand new stuff in there so you know you're not gonna have to have anything to worry about. Starting with our lower control arms here, the ball joints, well, they didn't have a whole lot of play in them, but there was a little bit, and it did come off of a truck with about 100,000 miles on it, so we're gonna go ahead and replace those. Now, we can get our ball joint tool assembled. If you don't have a ball joint press of your own, which is completely understandable because they can get pretty expensive, you can get one from AutoZone as a rental anytime you need to do a job like this. The one that we've got has pretty much every adapter under the sun, so I've already picked out the ones that we need to get this finished up. I'm going to slip this right over our stud, thread this down by hand until it gets snugged up. I'm gonna run and grab our new ball joint. We'll get that installed. This is our new Duralast ball joint. And you see, came with a new snap ring and everything, ready to be installed. It's got a nice knurling there that's gonna help it bite into this control arm. And I went ahead and got it scuffed up with a red scuffing pad so that all that old rust or any other buildup that was in there is out of the way. We'll have an easier time getting this new one in. Now that we've got the right adapters to get our ball joint installed, it's pretty much just the reverse of the removal, except this time we're going to have a receiver cup here on the top. What that's gonna do is allow the ball joint to actually push up into here without hitting our screw. Set that in, get this set up with the end of the screw in that indent of our adapter. And once again, try and make sure it is centered as much as it can be. Give it a little bit of tension by hand with a ratchet. All right. Now we got that. We got the tool just to the point where it was stopped Now we can go ahead and check this, make sure it's still even. Just like that, we've got our brand new Duralast ball joint installed. With our ball joints installed, we're gonna move on and get this brand new Duralast hub assembly installed into our steering knuckle. Now to do that, obviously we've got to get this old one out, starting by getting these 3 bolts removed. I'm gonna go ahead and heat this up, spray some penetrating oil in there, and then take it to the press, just so I'm not having to fight with it like I did the other one. This is our old hub assembly that I just removed from our steering knuckle. And as you can see, well, did not have the easiest time getting out of there. But we've got our new one here ready to go, and I already went ahead and cleaned up all of our mating surfaces here on the steering knuckle. So this should go in nice and easy. You probably noticed that it looks exactly the same as the old one, and that's because it's supposed to. The Duralast parts are designed for OE form, fit, and function. That way you know when you go to install them, it's gonna fit right in and do its job. Have our brand new hub assembly installed, along with a new wheel speed sensor that was included with the part. This is a 5-position adjustable shackle from LOJ Conversions. It's super solid construction. I mean, this is super thick, sturdy. It's gonna be nice and solid for once we get this thing off-road. So, let's get this in. Oh! From Summit Racing, we got these adjustable spring perches and the leaf springs themselves, just like that. Okay. For right now, we're using the old U-bolts as a safety mechanism and to allow us to adjust this thing into place a little bit easier. They will get replaced after we get this fully installed. There we go. See, what's cool is Nissan actually used the same flange on the Titan axle and the Frontier axle. So the Frontier drive shaft here is bolting right in, just like all our front end components did. And before you say anything, yes, I know you don't tighten in a circle, but this is finger tight and it's just for fitment. Let's get off my back. But that's where we're at now. We're gonna make some minor adjustments here. Go ahead and get these things welded in, and this will be ready to go.
All right, while Eric has been working on the suspension, I've been making miles getting all this sheet metal work done. As you can see, there's not a lot remaining of the doors, and everything that is remaining, I've welded to the cab of the truck. But what I really want to show you is the fiberglass work that I started on the other side. So brought Brian over from Detroit. I just wanted an expert opinion on this fiberglass work. I got a lot to do and I want to make sure I'm getting it done right the first time around. So what's your initial take?
Well, look, first of all, man, we're lack of experience with this product, and this is a little bit out of your standard wheelhouse, looks phenomenal. You wiped it just as slick as I asked you to do that, trying to give you some direction, okay? So we did put fiberglass filler over this. It's gonna take up majority of your gap and get things closer to being round or level, whichever way you wanna look at it. So it looks good, man. We'll knock the top off of this with some 80 grit paper. And there's a bunch of different ways we can do that. We'll talk about a couple tools here in a second. Once we do that, it's either ready for another application of fiberglass filler over that, or we could go straight to body filler from there. Okay. So right now, man, phenomenal job though, looks great.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what we can use, okay?
Yeah.
80 grit, like on a buffer or a grinder, this is 8-inch pad, okay? You could use this. The only problem with this is if you're not experienced with the tool, you will cut flat spots in it, right, as we go. So you definitely have to keep the tool moving the entire time.
Okay.
If it was me doing the work, I would use an air file. That's this right here, okay? It's a oscillating board. It goes back and forth like this. So it's easier and it cuts a lot faster. You just round your corners just like this to knock the top off from there. And then obviously we have the old manual block if you choose to do that. Gives you a good shoulder workout while you're doing it.
We'll have Eric do that one.
Yeah, definitely. But man, looks great. Like I said, let's get started, man. Let's knock the top off of it.
All right, I'll get an airline.
the last thing we got to do before we're finally ready to get some new wheels and tires on this thing and get it back on the ground is get our brakes installed. Now, we want to make sure to capitalize on the bigger brakes we got from the Titan and get the most stopping power possible, because this little thing's going to be pretty big. So we called up the guys over at EBC, and we've got us a set of Extra Duty Plus brake pads. Now, these things are great. They're formulated specifically for trucks and SUVs. They've got EBC's brake-in coating, so during that first 500 or so miles, you're still gonna get smooth braking performance. Plus, it's gonna help a lot with actually getting them broken in, hence brake-in. But on top of those pads, we also have a set of GD rotors. Now, we've got these for front and rear as well. They've got nice dimpling here around the outside, as well as slots. That's gonna help with keeping the temperature down and getting that dust out of there. Even though this is a lower dust formula, it's still gonna create some. So having that, evacuation, it's pretty helpful. So let's get this stuff installed. All right, now if you just absolutely insist on your rotors staying flush against your wheel hub while you're doing this, instead of coming off like that, you can put a lug nut on, but you don't have to. Now, it's also not necessarily necessary to replace your hardware when you replace your brake pads, but it's never a bad idea. But if you don't have the option to replace the hardware, then you can go ahead, clean up the old stuff, and reuse it. It's not gonna kill you, or anybody else for that matter. Thankfully, this is a brand new caliper and bracket, so I'm not gonna have to worry about greasing our pins, but I do still need to put grease on our hardware. And if you wanna make sure your brakes are gonna perform properly and quietly like they're supposed to, you always wanna make sure to get some grease on there. Now, I always like to put just a little bit of grease on the pads too. Not necessary, not a need to do, but not a bad practice. These pads have what's called a screecher or a squealer tab on them, and that's this little guy right here. And what that's gonna do is when that pad wears down to that point, it's gonna start hitting on the rotor and making noise to let you know it's just about time to change your brakes. It's good to have those because that's gonna give you a nice audible indicator that your brakes are starting to get low before you're running metal to metal and having to replace rotors and pads all at the same time. Now, these pads, I mentioned that they are specifically formulated for trucks and SUVs. And when I say that, I mean they are a high friction compound, which is gonna generate more braking power on its own. But they also have a higher heat capability, so if you're ever in a situation where, a lot of heat buildup is gonna start causing you issues, these pads are gonna be a lot better off than your standard ones. Plus, on top of all the other benefits, they actually last longer, offer a longer life than your OEM pads. And just like that, we've got our new front brake installed. Now I've got to do the other one still. All I've got left here is tighten up these two bolts and get this hose connected, and that's done. Now, if you're doing a Titan swap on your Frontier, whether it's a full swap like we've done here, a partial swap, or even if you're just doing some work to your stock Frontier with its original components, EBC's got you covered, whether it's the ED Plus for off-roading and hauling, or if you're into racing or anything else like that, they've got options for all of it. So, no matter what it is you're doing, make sure you check them out.
Now that we are done all of the sheet metal work, we can move on to something just a tad more interesting. Tube doors. So, I have the doors roughly laid out here. This is the B-pillar side, this is the A-pillar side. The B-pillar side is going to have suicide doors in the front, traditional doors hinged in the back, and we're gonna be using poly bushings. Now, the top bar is gonna be dead flat. We're gonna keep it simple. We need to make some time. The bottom, however, I need to put a bend in there. This way it just looks interesting. The thing I'm gonna do, and I have to keep in mind, is whatever I bend this block at, I need to bend this block in the opposite direction so both sides stay parallel. Once we get over to here, the locking mechanism that we got from Summit Racing is going to be boxed in, and we need to have it in an area and in a way that actually is aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be a lot easier to do that with the bar bent properly. Now, enough gabbing, let's head over to the bender and start bending some tubes. I have my blocks set up in a manner where, as you can see, I have nothing in front of the block, which means the material consumed is going to be behind the block. The die that I have in here is a 1.5" OD, so the size of the tube, by a 4.5" CLR. So that stands for center line reference. My offset from the block to the center of the die is 5.25 inches. And as you go up or down in CLRs, that is going to change as well. I put my pin in for the correct corresponding die. You always want to make sure your cotter pins, or whatever you guys call these at home, go in as well. The last thing you want is to be going through a die and these pins then walk themselves out, and then it just bends and twists the entire machine, and then more than likely it's garbage. Next up, we put in our roller. Make sure your roller is corresponding to the proper die. This one's an 1.5 inches, which is laser engraved straight from the plant, so you know that this is the right size. I believe they have 2 different sets. One's a roller and one is a block. So this one will actually roll as the tube goes through. The other one will just drag across. And once again, when you put your pin in, your pin has to correspond to the proper CLR of the die itself. If not, your math will be completely wrong. Now, what I like to do, because I also have one of these in my home shop, once I am done, I will sit here and do a complete front to back, top to bottom, double check all the pins are in, all the safeties are on, the whole 9 yards. This way, I know nothing's gonna move. Also, having a 9/16 wrench on hand just to make sure that the block is snug never hurts. Now, these are aluminum blocks, folks. Do not sit there and pretend you're the Hulk and think, oh, this gap here has to be closed. It does not have to be closed. It has to be snug. All right? Now, we have all that set up, all that's good to go. Another thing that's handy to have is a good dead blow hammer. I'll show why in a moment. All right, next step. There is a bunch of slop in the machine. We need to take that up. So what I like to do is I'll sit here, I turn it on, and I'll actually look down the back of the die. When you look down the back of the die, you can see daylight between the die and the tube. All right, there we go. That's all you have to do is just a couple quick little bumps. Once that is taken up, you move over to here, ensure that your degree pointer is set to 0. Now, if you really want to dial it in, this is where you can sit there and get yourself a degree cube. Make sure you zero it out. If it's not dead zero, it's not the end of the world. You're not building space rockets. Now, so what I want to do is I'm going to just go to 10 degrees, go 10 and 10. From there, we'll check, see how it looks, see how it fits. And then once I sit there and get something that I like, the team thinks is great, then we'll move on. I'll make some notes being like, okay, this is the degrees that we went to. And then from there, copy everything for the other side and go from there. We're also going to start doing everything in batch work. So once I bend this tube, I'm going to cut some more tube for the passenger side. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Now, why did I go to 13? I said I was going to do 10. Chris, you're not listening. You're not paying attention to what you're saying. Wrong. Metal always wants to go back to where it started, at least a little bit. It's called spring back. So you have to take that into account. So I went to 3 degrees extra. Once I take the stress off of that, it's going to spring back a little bit, and we're going to be good to go. All right. Now what we're going to do to get this out, it has set itself. Way to go, Butterfingers. There we go. Now, as you see, it's no longer connected in the front, but it's pivoting on the die itself. So how do we get that undone? Take your mallet, and what I like to do is just give it a little tap like that, and it comes right on out. I'm gonna sit there, tuck the tube under my arm. There you go. Flip it all around, do it again. All right, now we have our two bends parallel to each other in the opposite direction. Now we're gonna take this over to the truck, test fit it, see how it is, and then from there, keep making adjustments as needed. So we have these bent to 10 degrees, and you can see we're pretty low on the front A-pillar here, which is not the end of the world, but I want it to look something a little more akin to this here. So I'm gonna go back. This isn't exact. I'm going to my own personal taste right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna bend it to 20, see where we're at, and honestly, I think that's gonna get us really close to where we're gonna be. All right, that looks more to what I had pictured in my mind. Let's head back over to the truck, test fit, go from there. This is roughly how everything's gonna look, and you know what, I can live with that, I like it. So now, while everything's fresh in my mind, I'm going to sit here and write everything down on paper. Last thing you wanna do is be trying to remember things from your memory and make a mistake. Even if it's a couple degrees off, eventually someone's gonna go, this side doesn't look the same as the other. So I'm gonna make some notes, copy it, and actually I'm gonna lay one tube on top of the other so I know they're exact. You're good. Another way to check it, if you have something like this, like a fab table, it'll just lock it in. Now, I don't think I could have gotten those any closer if I tried.
Now we are going to start working on our doors, and those are going to start with the hinges. I had Frankie whip me up some of these aluminum heat sinks. This way I'm not cooking out the polyurethane on these poly bushings. I designed these on the computer. As you can see, they're a nice tab and slot design, so they go together nice and smooth, and they're nice and tight. I'm going to throw some preheat into it, tack the corners, weld the outside, and I am not going to weld the inside because I don't want any of the weld, even though I am TIG welding, to interfere with the poly bushing itself. And it's just gonna be nice and clean. So, let's rock and roll. So you might be asking yourself at home, Chris, why are you preheating your part? I'm glad you asked that, by the way. The base plate is 1/4 inch and the tabs themselves are 3/16. For TIG welding, this is getting a little on the thick side or a lot on the thick side, depending on what you're used to. And if you preheat the part, it's a lot less time you have to sit there in one spot with the welder trying to get the part to melt. All right, here we go. You're probably wondering why my tungsten stick out is 1 inch plus. That's because I need to get around the heads of the bolts and the cup interferes with the nut. So I have a gas lens set up. I'm running 20 PSI on the tank and it just makes up for it. All right, let's rock and roll. That's hot. That's really hot. All right, let's go see how this fits on the truck. I need some hardware.
I've got all of our EBC brake components installed, so all that's left to get the brakes finished up completely is to build some new lines. But that's pretty quick and easy, and there's some other stuff that I am way more excited to get on this truck. That being our brand new wheels and tires. And we've got some fresh 17x9 wheels from Nismo. These are a brand new design they just came out with. And we've got them wrapped up in some Yokohama Geolandar XMTs in 37x12.5. Now, we're gonna get this thing back down on all fours and see just how big this little truck is actually gonna be. Now, I'm gonna go get the other 3 of these big old things installed, and then we can get this thing down on the ground and see just how it's actually gonna sit.
Now that we have our top bar bolted in place, it's just loosely in there for now. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to align the top bar with our locking mechanism here that we got from Summit Racing. Once that's done, then I'll align the top and bottom bars together. From there, I'll box everything in. Once that's done, I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna go TIG weld it on the table. The reason I want to TIG weld it is because I want these welds to be as minimal as possible. I want to do as little grinding as possible. This way, when we go to paint, it just looks a lot more professional, a lot more clean. And ideally, perfect world scenario, I want to have that look as if it was all formed from one chunk of metal. So, we've got our ground on, machine is on. Make sure Greg didn't turn my gas off during lunch. And now we're just gonna get tacky, like my jokes. This is also the perfect time to start making sure that things are clearanced, because moving from here forward, things are gonna get tight. For example, this bottom tube, when it comes up, you can see how close we are to hitting this here. On top of that, I still have to cap this off. I've already gone ahead, checked, made sure everything is going to fit the way it's supposed to. So I'm confident that it's not gonna get in the door, truck, cab, whatever part we're calling this now. Now the fitting process begins. This is gonna be a lot of back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. However, if you're doing a project, it doesn't matter if it's going to SEMA or if it's just something you want to take to your local car show or just the trails. The way I look at it is if your name's on it, do it to the best of your ability. So, the more time you take here, the better your end result will be. There we go. Now, I line this up to match with this surface here, but however, this surface is actually going to be hidden. What I want is to have a nice reveal like this so that I can box in the back end completely, and it saves me a lot of work down the road. I'm not going to have to worry about putting in more structure or anything else like that because it's all going to be right there. So, I'm just going to sit here once again, make sure it's where I want it, tack it and send it. The next part is going to be the cap / angle piece here, which is going to start boxing it all in. This is where I have the tendency to end up chasing 0 because it is going to be front and center next to this guy and the tubes. It's also going to be where your hands touch all the time. And if you have ever been walking through the mall and you're running your hand down the hand railing and you feel like a little boop, a weld BB, it's annoying. For me anyway. So what I ended up doing to try and save myself some time is I transferred over the cope location where it's going to wrap around the tube, as well as the top part here that I need to cut out over on the bandsaw so that we can key in to the angle piece here. So now I'm just going to switch over to the zip disc, cut this out, head over to the bandsaw, cut that out. Actually, I could probably do it all on the bandsaw. Let's just go to the bandsaw. Now that we have the top piece cut, fit, all that, this is the final fit up right here. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy with it. This little gap that we have right here, we're looking at maybe a 1/16, and that is plenty easy to fill there with a little bit of TIG rod. Now, before I tack this on, I'm gonna head over to the sandblaster, prep this, make life easy for my future self. So when it's time to paint, all I have to do is degrease it, and then I can start shooting some paint. So off to the sandblaster, and then we'll tack it. All right, now that we have it sandblasted, put it in its forever home. All right, now that that's tacked in, I have a little gusset. No, not like that. Like that? Yeah, perfect. Now, gonna head over to the table, grind down some of these tacks, fire up the TIG welder, send it.
While Chris has been getting the tube doors figured out, I have been making some room for these tires to actually fit, because as you can see, there's not a whole lot of room right there, especially once we start cycling the suspension. Now, I've already measured, we've got about 5 inches of upward travel in the axle before we hit our bump stop. So we wanna make sure we've got a minimum of that much room. That way the tire is never gonna contact our bedside. Also, we're adding on fender flares to get a little bit of tire coverage, and that's gonna take up a little bit more room this way. So we gotta remember that we need to keep that in mind while we're taking all of our measurements, making all of our cuts. But thankfully, I've already got the other side finished up, and I was able to use a cutoff from that side to make these templates that I've got taped on here. That's gonna allow us to get at least a relatively even cut on both sides. So, now that we have these taped up here, all I've gotta do is just get a mark down here. And then as I take this tape off, I'll go ahead and just connect the line through, then get this out of the way, trim this out, and then we should be good. I'll take a couple measurements to verify that it matches what I measured out on the other side, and then we can go ahead and start test fitting our fender flare. So, let's get to cutting. So now that that's marked, we're gonna go ahead and take the tape off, one piece at a time. So without actually measuring, that does look pretty close. Now I did, on our template, you'll see that the cuts on the other one, now this was just a screw up on my part, but this was actually the mark here and here from our first piece that we templated off of. And what I did to fix that was in the template, I just took that line out and kept it even all the way up. That's one benefit of being able to do this with a template instead of just going for it, taping it out. We'll do the same thing here as we did on the other side. All right, just like that. So we got a little tiny bit of overcut on this top one. Not a big deal, because we'll just blend that in with a sander, come back over, clean this edge up, and just round out anywhere that it kind of flattened up. Then call this side done. Let's get the other one cut. We will end up cutting off this support brace right here, because that hole obviously no longer exists. But we do want to leave this other brace in here, because that's going to help hold the form of this corner of the bedside. And that is actually completely out of the way of where everything needs to go. So now I'm going to go through, clean these up a bit, because as you know, when you cut sheet metal, you get a whole lot of little stabby guys off the side, and that's just not fun for anybody. So we're going to run this with a sander on both sides and then start our test fit. This is one of the fender flares that we're gonna be using on this Frontier. This is a pocket style fender flare. You see it's got the conventional holes around the outside. It is a classic style for a fender flare that we think is gonna look just fine on this truck. Now, this is fitted for a 2025 Frontier, or 22 to 25 at this point, but the mounting positions didn't quite line up with the stock wheel well, And as you can see, even if we had left all of that, we would still be having to worry about holes to cover up anyways, because we wouldn't be able to cover them up if that metal was still there. Now, that gives us the opportunity to mess with these flares a little bit and get them spread out to both give us the clearance we need and match the new wheel well cut. So when you go to do this, the best way to start is you want to try and figure out exactly where your midpoint is. Now, if you have hardware that mounts into factory locations, obviously that's the best way to find your middle point. But if you don't, well, you just got to kind of eyeball it. Now, to make sure this thing is sitting right in this wheel well, I'll be using this body line across the top where it's nice and even, and make sure that we have an even gap all the way through here. And that's going to tell us that this thing is fitted right against the factory metal that's still there. Now, for the ends, it's a little bit different story, because we're gonna have to come out to meet up with our new wheel well, but also we gotta make sure that this curve matches up right with the body. So that's gonna be quite a bit of tugging and pulling, and we're gonna need this thing fixed in place for us to do that. So for that, we're gonna be using some vice grips, and that's gonna allow us to clamp this thing into place and do all the spreading that we need to do, and then mark out where our holes need to go. Now, for this corner here, we actually have a bolt already in place for that support that I showed you guys earlier. So what we're gonna do for this is we'll pick up on that hole and use that same bolt to attach this bottom corner. But we can't do that until we get this fitted in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount all the rest of the way around, come in here with a heat gun, get this nice and warm, and then just massage it into place so it fits around this contour. Then we'll figure out where we need to put that hole to get it bolted in. Now, I'm gonna have to do this quite a few more times to get this thing mounted, you know, test fit, take it off, drill a hole, this and that. Just like that, we've got all 4 of our fender flares installed. Now, obviously, they're just hand tight for right now with this finger driver, because they are gonna have to come off again almost immediately so the wrap can go on. But before the wrap can go on, we do still have one more hole we've got to drill. And that's gonna be to get this new Nismo snorkel installed, just to make sure that if we do end up in a river with our kayaks, this thing's gonna survive. Now, it's gonna sit, as most snorkels do, on an A-pillar, something like that. Now, normally you would want to make sure that your positioning was correct so that your door could still open, but in our case, obviously that's not really an issue because this door is never going to open again. But as you can see, we've already got everything laid out and positioned so that the back end of our snorkel is going to end up just at the back of this fender, right where it's supposed to be. So if the door was still functional, it would still have room to swing out. But that notwithstanding, everything is already laid out, marked, and I've already done a center punch here. So we're gonna go ahead and punch our pilot hole. Then we'll grab the hole saw and make a big ol' hole. So now that that's cut, obviously it's still not the cleanest hole. So I'm gonna go grab a file, get this cleaned up, and then we can slap our template on here, get the holes drilled for our bolts. All right, that's gonna be the last hole that I've got to drill before the wrap can go on. So I'm gonna get these deburred once I get all this stuff off of here. You guys go see what Chris is doing.
All right, now that we have this door all welded up, let's see how she fits. Grab my bolts. All right. What do you think?
That looks pretty good.
Thank you.
I mean, it fits good. It actually shut well. I mean, that's more than we could say if I tried to do this. You got a little bit of cleanup, and then what else?
3 more doors.
What's 3 more? But it's actually perfect timing for you to get away from this thing and go work in your corner over there, because this thing's about to get wrapped.
I think you guys are gonna like what we have in store.
Oh, you got it this time.
I did. I practiced. One of the directives that we got from Nissan for this project was that the looks had to fit with all the other parts going onto it. So of course, who'd we call but Graphic Effects to come and install this in-your-face colorful wrap that's going to ensure that no one can look away when they see this thing coming down the trail. As always, they knocked it out of the park, and it is looking crazy, and we love it. Plus, this wrap is going to tie in perfectly with all the other colors going on here.
All right. Well, that does it for getting our last fender flare put back on, and even though this truck is obviously wrapped up now, it's not quite finished. But before we move on, I do want to give a big thanks to the guys from Graphic Effects because I think they did an absolutely amazing job on this truck. And, you know, it's colorful, it's crazy, but I think it fits.
It does. I mean, they did an amazing job, and I'm happy with it. It looks great.
Yeah, but as I said, we still have some work to do, so I think you got that roof rack to get prepped, and then I've got some stuff under the hood to take care of, so you want to divide and conquer?
Let's do it. Next up, what we're going to do is start installing the lights on our roof rack. Nismo sent us not only the roof rack, but the 40-inch single-row light bar as well, which is great because in this application, it is ever so slightly lower than the bars that are going to be holding our kayaks. Next up that we have to do is install the smaller lights, these guys here, into the pockets along the sides of the roof rack. And what those are for is just more than anything, lighting up the campsite when you're at night. You don't want to trip over stuff.
Moving right along with getting our Frontier ready to get back on the trail, I am getting our old air intake taken out. This is our last piece of the airbox here, and that can go away because we're gonna be installing this nice fancy carbon fiber cold air intake that we got from the guys over at Nismo. Now, this thing is pretty cool. I've already taken everything from the factory intake that we needed, which is gonna be our connector to the throttle body, mass airflow sensor, and all of the hardware here, as well as this seal going into the fender. Now, this thing is gonna connect right to our snorkel that I showed you earlier, and again, it's carbon fiber, so it's gonna match and look amazing under this hood. And there's one really cool feature that I've never personally seen before, and that is this magnetic lid that's gonna make access to the filter for service and maintenance and replacements that much easier. You're not dealing with any screws or anything like that. You just snap it right back into place and you're ready to go. So let's drop this thing in, see how it looks. Now, like I mentioned, we did take all of the hardware from our factory intake, and that's gonna work because this thing bolts right in place. You see it fits perfect. We'll plug in our mass airflow, and because that is the factory sensor, bolts right into this new intake, connects up just fine. I'm gonna get those tightened down, then we'll get our filter installed, see how this thing looks all finished up. Cherry on top. Beautiful.
You know, I'm not saying this is heavy, Eric, but it would have been really nice having a hand bringing this over.
This was your idea. I don't know what you're talking about. Just don't hit that sunroof or scratch the wrap.
I'm more worried about the wrap.
Got it.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. Down nice and gentle.
Nice and easy. Let me know when you got yours lined up and I'll check over here.
Yeah, just hold on a second. Let me throw a bolt and washer in the front. Well, if you want, I can take care of dialing in this roof rack if you want to hop onto something else.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so while Chris is doing that, I'm gonna hop down here and we're gonna go ahead and get our snorkel installed. I've got 2 more holes I gotta punch out of the wrap, and then we'll get it fitted up. We can lay it out against the A-pillar, get our bracket set, and then that'll be installed, and we are dangerously close to getting this thing out.
All right, well.
Now, with our last bolt tightened up on that snorkel, it's pretty secure, but we do still have to add a support here from the A-pillar, and I think you've got that done, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Well, let's see how it fits. See what they're paying you for.
I don't know. I've been trying to answer that question.
I mean, it looks like it fits. The holes line up and stuff. Well, I guess while you're doing that, I'm gonna hop back down in that wheel well, get the inner fender liner put back in, and we're moving right along.
Sounds good. Now, I know some of y'all are probably wondering, why did we tell the wrap guys not to wrap right here? Well, you're gonna be getting in and out. It's a high traffic area, and we didn't want the wrap getting peeled and cut and ripped off, all that good stuff. So what we're gonna be doing is spraying it with some spray-on bed liner. It's gonna match the bed liner that we have, as well as the texture throughout that you'll find on the vehicle. I'm taping everything off. Brian gave me a few good tips and tricks. So now all I have to do is hit it with some red Scotch-Brite, scuff it up a little bit, blow it off, and then shoot it. If this wrap comes up, I will probably cry. I think this really rounds out the whole appearance of this truck. I know it's something that's really small and it might be a little hard to see on the screen there, but these little touches, like carrying the bed lining from the inside to the outside, it's little things like that that just round everything out, make it more inviting, and I think it's that final like 5% stuff like this that makes entire builds amazing. Now that we have our tube doors back from paint, it's time to assemble them. There we go. Now, we just need to adjust up here. Haha, success. There we go. So as you can see, the doors are coming along. All I have to do now is just continue to mount them. All the hinges are on, all the latches are on, and everything is fitting perfectly. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming along. The only thing left to do is put in our little pull handles. All right, since we've been talking about kayaks and all that other good stuff, and we need to do some handles on these doors, figured we'd carry the theme on over. These here are handles that you can get for the front or rear of your kayak, and what they're used for is just to sit there and one person picks up the front, one picks up the rear, and then off to the water you go. We're gonna use them for a little different purpose here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill a hole in the top, come down through, hook up onto the actual lock mechanism inside, so when we want to open the doors, instead of having to reach up and in, we grab here, pull up, door unlocks, and off we go. So, off we go.
Project Rapid Runner is moving right along, but we are not quite finished yet. You can see we've got our wheels and tires back off. We sent those down to Brian in Detroit Muscle. He's gonna do a little bit of paint work to help tie those wheels in with the color scheme of this truck. Now, Chris has got these doors installed, and man, these look awesome.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I find they flow with the whole theme of the build.
They do. Do they actually work though? That's the question. Very nice. I like the kayak handle on here. That's nice. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
But now we do still have one more issue we've got to solve before we can try to take this thing out, and I think we've got a pretty good solution for that.
Correct. We are going to be running with a 2-inch body lift that we got from Z1 Off-Road. It's made out of UMHW, that is UV stabilized, and that is going to lift the whole body up off the chassis by 2 inches, and what that's gonna do is give us just a little extra clearance on our 37-inch tall tires that we have been running into clearance issues up front.
And while we're doing this, I wanna give a huge shout out to the team over at Covercraft for having our needs covered with these custom waterproof seat covers that are gonna match our wheel accents and really bring out the interior of this truck so you've got even more to look at as if there wasn't enough already. Now that we've got our seat covers installed, we're gonna continue accessorizing Rapid Runner with a whole bunch of gear that we got from the team over at Nismo. That's gonna include these 2 power cubes and a solar panel. So we've basically got 2 little solar generators here. We've got a rack shower that's gonna bolt right onto the side of our bed rack. We're gonna be able to fill that up. It's got an internal pump and a hose, so we'll be able to clean ourselves, our gear, or whatever else we need to out on the trail. We've got backpacks to hold all of our personal stuff, ratchet and bungee straps for tying down all the gear on the outside. A couple of coolers here with their drop-in cutting board and storage rack, so we've got room for all of our food, drinks, and whatever else. And of course, we've got to accessorize ourselves. We got these nice Nismo sun hats and sunglasses, so once we're out on the water, we're gonna be nice and comfortable. So we're gonna get started getting this rack shower installed, and we are just right there ready to get this thing going. So we are finally out here. We've got Rapid Runner finished up, and we figured now that this thing's finished up, we gotta go out and test it, obviously. So we are on our way to Dirt Devil Off-Highway Vehicle Trail here in Tennessee, and we're gonna see just what this thing can do.
The suspension's done, the doors are done, we got everything done to the nines, and I am stoked to be out here. It's been a long road.
That's a bit of an understatement, but we're finally out here, and we've got 4 kayaks up on top of here, and we need to go try and find some water to drop them into, so grab them keys and let's go. Honestly, if you would have told me that I could take components off of a full-size truck and bolt them into a mid-size truck and not only have it be functional, but look this good, I would have called you crazy, but I mean, here we are, Nissan's gone and done it. It is a strange feeling being in something that's not a Jeep without doors on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm starting to see a little water in that creek over there. We do gotta find a good place to drop in though, because I am itching to try out those kayaks from Jackson.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, wow. As we turn the corner, just looking down and seeing the road and the creek bed, that is gorgeous.
Yeah. What was that?
Massive pothole that we just went straight through and then over a log.
Oh, I didn't feel it.
Neither did I.
Dang, somebody knows how to set up a suspension. I wonder who did that. It rides very stable on this trail. I'm extremely impressed with the ride quality.
This is like riding on a cloud.
It does. It feels like we're still driving this thing on the road. That's the craziest part, is you're not feeling any of these potholes or bumps or anything. I mean, this thing is just stuck to the ground. I mean, it's crawling the ruts pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that putting this thing together was easy or simple by any means, but I'm glad that we did it, and I'm glad we did it the way we did, because this thing turned out amazing. First real test for this thing here. Let's see what she does. Dude. It didn't even care. It did not care. All right, find some more water. Let's do this again. Golly. Oh, man.
Why do I find that so funny? I don't know.
It's a good thing we got waterproof everything.
Yeah?
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Come on. Come on. Yes! Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
Oh, I'm soaked!
No!
It never gets too old.
That last one, I felt it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be really uncomfortable for the whole rest of the day.
Well, this Frontier that we did the Nissan Titan swap on was actually amazing. Every creek crossing, every puddle, every pothole, it handled amazing.
Yeah, not only did it handle it, but it absolutely loved it. The truck is still running great. We haven't experienced any issues from the beating we've given it so far. I mean, the best part is that wasn't even the point of coming out here today. The point was to get ourselves to a spot like this, no matter what it took to get there, so that we could drop in these Nirvanas that we got from Jackson Kayak and have a little bit of fun. And I think probably about time to do that. Looks like as good a spot as any.
These are lighter than I expected.
Oh, I'm facing the wrong way.
Before we leave today, we need to get a photo taken of that thing.
Sure. I can't believe someone actually lives on this trail. That's not a bad place to live, though.